Want to make sure that you look here and that the system has recognized it and that it's happy and ready to go. So it would see right now we're seeing DX34 is connected. There would be another one that would say DX12, which is where that other box lives. We can actually label these, and I'll show you how to label them. Same thing with the Surface. If you had anything connected here, then you'd want to check and make sure that it was showed up for work. And then also, obviously, that audio sync lock is important. You are getting your clock from Dante. I'll show you where the clock is. So, but it's important because, especially because you're getting an external clock from somewhere else on the ship. That's not one of these two things. It's important that you make sure that you have good clock. If you ever did have an error, you would have red X's there, and also you would get a flashing orange triangle up here. If you ever see that orange triangle, you can touch it and it will take you to whatever page has the problem going on. If you ever see a blue circle with an I in it, that's the I stands for information, and that's just letting you know that there was an error and then that error has corrected itself, but you can touch the circle and it will tell you what happened. Yeah. So important stuff to know. We're going to talk about users for sure. They're very useful. So if you ever wanted to switch users, then you can do it in here. And if you ever need to lock the Surface, you can do that. And when you're going to power down the Surface, you just power down, hit yes, and then it will say please wait. That's the power down for the Surface. If you ever do need to turn the rack off, there's nothing. You just turn it off, and then you can turn it back on again. Okay. So once you are sure that everything is working, then the next thing that you want to do is make sure that you have all the correct setup in the mix rack, which is the mixer itself. So you do have a mix rack button here, and that takes you into those settings. One of the most important things is this mixer config page. You may never need to change it, but it's just good to know that it's here. Looks like you have yours set up the same exact way as the other ships. But what we're looking at here is the different types of buses that you have. Most mixers have a set number of auxes and groups and matrices. This console does not. You get to decide how many of each type you want. So you've got a bunch of mono auxes here for monitors, stereo auxes for IEMs, and you've got some matrices and so on and so forth. If you ever did need to change this, you can just do it in here. This works off the touch and turn, so you just dial it in there. And you're working on 5.1 surround, which is fun. But that could be just an LCR or different left to right. So the one thing you need to know that is if you change this, it is going to stop audio. So most consoles can't even do this. So you can't do this during a show because it will stop audio. The console needs to take the mixer offline for a couple seconds. The other thing that will stop audio is this next tab over, which is making stereo channels. So if you want to link two inputs into one stereo channel, you can do that in here. You just have to do it before the show starts because this will briefly stop audio. Okay. This tab here is called name and color. Obviously, you can name channels in here, but I'll show you two better places to name channels if you ever want to change the names of things. The one thing that's useful in here is if you want to change the colors of a lot of things, like these have their matching colors there. You can do them in groups here instead of having to do them one at a time. So you could do input select all and then choose a color, and it would change all of your inputs instantaneously instead of having to do them one at a time. Not the most useful page in here, but just wanted you to know it was there. This network page is the one that gets everyone in trouble. So best practice is just to stay out of this one. Just so you're aware, the mixer and the control surface communicate with each other over standard networking. It's actually layer 2 gigabit Ethernet, so it's just like any home network. So they're sending TCP/IP control packets between. The mixer, the rack has a static IP address. The Surface has a static IP address, and that's how they communicate and find each other. If you mess around with this, then you can break that connection, and then the audio will still pass. It will still have a mixer, but you won't have a way to control it. And if you break it bad enough, it will kick that thing off too. So, because that also has an IP address. The next tab over here is the user profiles that I mentioned from the home screen. You can have up to 10 user profiles. This is really useful for locking out of things if you want. Like, for example, you could lock this page so that you can look at it, but you can't change it if you wanted to do that. But these are also really useful if you have different people using the mixer, because we all kind of see things differently. We all have different mindsets. So you can set it up the way that it works best for you. And then when you log in, it will set the mixer up the way that you want it. So you can use user profiles for a lot of things. If you do want to use a different user profile, you do need to make sure that it's active. So if you wanted to use 3, you would need to turn it on and make it actually active, or it won't show up in the login screen. You can name these whatever you want. You can have a password or not. And then if you want, you can put in notes. So you can have notes about what it's for or who it's for, and those do show up in the login screen so you can see them. And like I said, you can have it load a set of parameters specifically for that user based on a scene, and we're going to look at scenes a little bit later on. Basically, a scene is a bunch of saved settings for instant recall. So when you recall a scene, it will just change everything that's in that scene. And then if you wanted to limit permissions for someone, then you have all of these tabs of all of the different controls, and then you've got subsets within those tabs, and they tell you on the right hand side here what those things are. Someone's already locked this, the network config, so if I was to go back to that and try to change it, it would tell me I'm not allowed to do that. So you have the ability to lock stuff out like that. Okay. The next tab over here is the RF devices. You have Shure microphones, and I know you have Wireless Workbench running on there, but you can actually turn on monitoring here and see them here. The network on the Shure mics would need to be set up. We talked to the Reflection staff yesterday. I think you made a note about getting that set up. Once you do that, you'll be able to see your battery and your radio strength for all of your microphones right in the channel, so you won't have to go to the computer to do that. It's actually really nice. We'll help you get that set up in the near future. All right. Next tab that's important up here is this audio tab. As I mentioned, you're getting your clock from Dante, so it is important that that stays on Mixer IO port 1. The other option would be internal, and that means it would be clocking itself, but then it will be out of sync with the Dante clock, and since you're getting Dante audio, you would likely get clicks and pops and things like that. So if you ever hear weird clicking, make sure that you check that. You would also get a clock sync warning letting you know that the clock was drifting. So, but I just think it's important that you guys know that you have a Dante grid that's giving you audio in and out, and that's what you are clocking the mixer to. Okay, you do have an automatic mic mixer on board. I know some of your inputs here are set up for automatic mic mixing. This doesn't work for music, but it is great if you've got people that are talking, whether it be a comedian or a panel discussion or anything like that. And basically what this does is it just senses whichever microphone is being used, and it turns down the ones that are not being used. So it's constantly just basically like you trying to follow the faders, but it does it all automatically. So it's really helpful if you've got someone on stage. It helps you eliminate feedback and things like that, because any microphone that's just being held and not being talked into, it's going to lower that down for you automatically. Okay, in here we have the talkback section. You have 2 talkback groups set up, but you can also manipulate them here.